Monday night, win or go home hoops. It can't possibly get too much better than this. This is The Jump, presented by Hungry Jack's. The burgers are better at Hungry Jack's. Kane Pittman right here. Andrew Gazey about to join me. And the Sydney Kings, they're in the market for a new head coach, and surely nobody was surprised by that. Is Jaylen Galloway ready for the NBA? And should Jack McVey be suspended? We'll get to all of that, but first, tonight's opening tip. And it's all about the Hawks and the Breakers. A spot in the semi-final series with Melbourne is on the line. How did we get here, you might ask? The Breakers went on the road and took down the Kings behind 34 points from Parker Jackson Cartwright. Maybe this was a little slice of revenge for the grand final loss last season. The Hawks, on the other hand, they were beaten soundly in Tasmania, shooting just 40% from the floor in what was really a tough night all round for the Hawks. But based on recent history, you should expect a very close game tonight. The Hawks took the season series 2-1, but every one of those games was decided by 4 points or fewer. 1 point of note, the first matchup this season came on November 19. This was the first game in the Justin Tatum era. The Hawks won a 69-65 slugfest. They have not looked back since. The Hawks have been on fire. The Breakers now need to go on the road in Illawarra. Andrew Gazey, we just saw you a few days ago. Just a little bit of double jump this week. We don't mind doing that when we've got play in hoops. This is where it really gets serious now. The loser is done and dusted. The other team gets to play Melbourne. What is the one thing you're looking forward to the most from this matchup?
Well, I think there's a lot of matchups that we can identify that's going to be intriguing, but the home court advantage of the Illawarra Hawks, who would have thought we'd be talking about that at the start of the season when we look at the path that they've taken, but the New Zealand Breakers coming in with that confidence, coming in that game against the Sydney Kings, where you're in a must-win situation, and they generate a lot of confidence from that win, particularly when you look at Parker Jackson Cartwright. To me, he is going to be the determining factor. Yes, the New Zealand Breakers have got a lot of other options. Zylan Cheatham, he had those 18 points against the Kings, and Will McDowell-White, despite carrying in that shoulder injury, still had a major impact. But to me, this game is going to be on the hand of the New Zealand Breakers and Parker Jackson Cartwright. He has been sensational. Look at the scoring that he's been able to put on the board. But the Illawarra Hawks, they've also shown at home in particular, they've been really strong, and Gary Clark is going to be a big factor for them as well. I think Sam Froling is an important piece to the Illawarra Hawks. He has been all season, and how he can protect the rim. But Illawarra need to do a better job on the defensive end. They gave up those 92 points in that loss, and that's too many. Somehow or other, they've got to find a way to contain Parker Jackson Cartwright if they're going to get the win.
Yeah, the Hawks were 8-6 at home in the season, but a bunch of those losses came when they were losing every game at the start of the season. So clearly that home court advantage has been a lot better. You mentioned Sam Froling. I wanted to ask you a bit more about him and what you've made of his season. Against the Breakers this year, 10 offensive rebounds in those 3 games. And this Breakers team does play small a little bit. So I agree that Sam Froling feels like a key. What have you made of his season? Because he's still so young, and it feels like he's a veteran in this league. We've been watching him play for years and years and years.
I think with someone like Sam Froling, the thing that I've been impressed that clearly he's been doing work in the off-season. Year on, year out, the last couple of seasons, he's gotten better. And although the numbers can vary, I think that his ability to dominate the post, he's great around the basket, but he's improved since he's come into the league as being a threat, particularly in the low post. Yes, he can catch it at the elbow and rip, very left-handed, but around the rim, he's become a real threat. And also his passing. A lot of teams nowadays, that they'll throw it into Sam Froling and they'll send the double team because they have to. But he is a willing passer and a good passer that can use his size, runs the floor really well. And I think that he is, if he continues on this trajectory, he is a player that sometime in the future, we can expect to be pulling on a green and gold jersey.
Yeah, so many talented big men in Australian basketball. We're going to get to more of the Hawks and the Breakers later in this show, but the Sydney Kings, they wasted no time moving on from first-year head coach Mahmoud Abdel Fattah. The Kings were bounced out of the postseason by the undermanned New Zealand Breakers, which honestly was a fitting end to a highly disappointing season. The Kings failed to win back-to-back games since November 12. They had no semblance of consistency with lineups, and they were unable to defend ascend to the level of previous seasons, and this ultimately led to a very restless fan base and ultimately a front office that wanted to make this move. I don't think I should ask you whether you're surprised, because I don't think anyone is, but what stands out to you as the biggest problem with this Sydney team right through the season? So talented on paper, and it just never looked right.
No, that's true. And like a lot of the teams, they had to deal with some injuries. The loss of DJ Hogue, what did he play? 16 games in the season. That is a big chunk of the season. You're going into to games without one of your prime movers. So that certainly was a factor. But to me, it was on the defensive end. Offensively, they're the leading point-scoring team in the competition, right up the top in offensive efficiency, although they did turn the ball over a lot in that high-paced play. But defensively, they were inept. They were as poor as I've seen from a defending champion. Now, I know that the personnel had changed quite significantly from last season, but they had a look at a variety of different things. They started the season with just trying to switch everything. They had a look at some zone, but for whatever reason, they weren't able to get any sort of security on the defensive end, and as such, they suffered enormously. So I think that Coach Mahmood was really struggling to find the combinations. Angus Glover, who was a hero in their championship win last season. In fact, without his heroics, they do not win that Game 5 against the New Zealand Breakers. And then we saw at the end of the season, he's coming up with some DNPs. And even in the start of the season, it seemed like he struggled to find the right role for him. Their starting lineups were constantly changing. I don't think they got the best out of Denzel Valentine. So they had a lot of things that they look back on and think that it just didn't go quite right. And unfortunately for Mahmood, he's the one that cops the brunt of it, and they're in the market for someone new.
Yeah, and we are hearing reports, our man Olgun Uluc has been all over it, suggesting Brian Goorjian might be nearing a return to the Sydney Kings. Had that three-peat back in 03, 04, 05. Just a solid 20 years between coming back. I still feel like this has to be an attractive option for Brian Goorjian if you're looking at an NBL franchise to go to and have success. Absolutely. You look at the venue they play at, they're packing it out. Their attendances this season were as good as they've ever been. And when you've got a ownership group that's willing to invest, and clearly they are, they're willing to invest in the program to give yourself a chance to win a championship. The two-time defending champs, they've been able to uncover some great imports, and they're going to be aggressive in the free agent market. So as a coach playing in a big market, Brian Goorjian would fit perfectly into that, because he also knows the fan base. Being there, I know it's a long time ago, but being there and having success with the Sydney Kings back in the when was it, 23 did you say was his first one, 03, 04, 05, in a very, very tough period for the club as well. I think that they would welcome him with open arms, but let's be honest, any NBL team in the competition is going to welcome Brian Goorjian with open arms because of the history that he has had. One of the shining lights for the Kings this year was Jaylen Galloway. Now, he also had some injury concerns through this season. Official this morning, the Bucks assigned him to a two-way contract. Our man, Trevor Gleeson, I was talking to him yesterday, and he said he did get asked about Galloway a couple of weeks ago. What does he see and what does he think? So it's a nice connection there as well. From what you saw this year, you think Jaylen Galloway is potentially ready to take that next step? Well, it's interesting when you look at NBA teams now and you're trying to look at some of our talent and how that will translate. I think Jaylen Galloway's skill sets does translate. He is an elite athlete. He can play above the rim. In offense and defensive transition, he gets up and down the floor, seems to have a good feel for the game, particularly on the defense. You see the body control, the Euro step. But the thing that really will help him, he can shoot the three ball. Now, the NBA distance is a little further, but I think that his shooting and the way in which he can create his shot from the three-point line, that can translate. Some of that stuff you see getting to the rim, a lot bigger bodies that he's going to have to deal with, but he is an uber elite athlete that would fit comfortably in that system. I think you can understand why an NBA team would have a look at him because of that athleticism and because he can shoot the three ball. You look at, a lot of people say, well, hang on, Xavier Cooks
was a league MVP. He went over and it didn't quite translate when he was with the Washington Wizards. But I think it's a little different with Jaylen Galloway because of what he can do from the perimeter and the way the game's played and the way in which he can shoot the perimeter shot these days. Gives him a good chance for his skill sets to translate.
Yeah, it's like the NBA prototype right now, guys that can defend 2 to 4 and shoot the 3 as well. So I'm with you. I think Jaylen Galloway's in a really good spot. He's going to play for the Boomers in the future, you believe. Patty Mills, though, he's on the agenda next, waived by the Hawks. But with Paris very much on his mind, we hear from the Boomers great and grab Gazey's thoughts next.
There's new challenges that arise from time to time over the course of your career, and some of them, you enjoy and fun and they're good, and others are very challenging, and you kind of find the joy in being able to overcome those challenges. But at the end of the day, I think the Paris 2024 Olympics coming up with the Boomers has been something that's at the forefront of my mind during this time. So being able to gear up for that and shift my mentality into, the things that I can do to prepare for, another Olympics and then what we're trying to accomplish there definitely helps me get through this season.
You're watching The Jump presented by Hungry Jacks. That was Patty Mills back in January. So the challenge he was talking about in that conversation was not getting minutes in Atlanta, Gazey. Now we know that the Hawks have waived him. But I guess the question now is, what should he do next? We've heard all sorts of suggestions. Would it be the NBA? The great Chris Anstey suggested Europe. My question to you, do you think that he needs a team if the role isn't going to be major, or can he just prepare right now without a team for the Olympics?
Yeah, I don't think he needs a team, but I think it would be helpful if he got to play somewhere. And yes, Europe would be great because of the level that they play at. It'd be great preparation for it to get in some really professional programs. But playing anywhere, it might even be Asia. He's had some time in China. I know it's getting towards the end of the season in the CBA or maybe in Japan. But anywhere where you can get some regular game time where you're the man. Because when it comes to the Boomers, yeah, his role might be changing a little, but he's still going to be very much a focal point. And getting into a program where you're going to be one of the prime movers is great preparation. You can keep in shape, you can shoot the ball and keep your form going, but it's the decision making, it's the pace of play, it's the defensive pressure that you got to also prepare for. And some of that can be replicated in a training environment, but nothing is more advantageous than actually playing. So even if he goes to an NBA team, and sure, he may not have a significant role, but just the fact that he's getting in games, playing 10 minutes a game at the NBA level would be helpful. So his numbers, when you look at the World Cup, were really strong. Very similar, in fact, the numbers at the World Cup to what they were in Tokyo, where he's had a superstar. And, of course, that standout game where he had 42 points against Slovenia to bring home the bronze medal. But I think for him to be somewhere near his best, it would be helpful, not compulsory, but it would be helpful if he was able to hook up with a team somewhere to get some games in. And by the way, the NBL 1 program with the mighty Melbourne Tigers, we're more than happy to help out Brian Goorjian and the Australian Olympic campaign. He can come and play with the Tigers where he's played with the Melbourne Tigers before in the past.
Gazey, I'm glad that you said that because I was running through my head when you were answering. I'm like, should I go with the Melbourne Tigers? I don't want to be disrespectful. So you said it. I hope that you've made the call. But those Boomers numbers that you already referenced, so 18.6 points per game, 53% from the floor and 38% from three at the World Cup. Great efficiency and high volume scoring. There was only 3 Boomers that scored in double digits. Josh Giddey and Dante Exum, the other ones. For me, he has to play a big role on this team. There are question marks around Patty. I don't know why they come so quickly. How do you feel about what his role is going to be on this Boomers team with the squad we've got?
Yeah, there's no doubt he's going to have a significant role. And his shooting and his scoring is going to be what we're relying on once again. But a lot will depend on what happens with some of the other players. There's a question mark about Dyson Daniels. Is he going to be fit and healthy? Will he actually be available? And if he becomes available, you suspect, based on what we saw this season in the NBA, his role is going to be significantly more than what it was at the World Cup. And in order for that to happen, someone's minutes has to be sacrificed. And I don't think you're going to say, Paddy, well, I think he averaged like 31 minutes a game at the World Cup. There might be 2 or 3 minutes that will drop down from there. But, you know, I think that how in which he's plays with his teammates, what his teammates are going to look like is going to have a big impact on what type of role that he will play. And there we see the points leaders. He has been a superstar, and the 501 points is something that that we should acknowledge. And to do that in a team that's won a medal is extraordinary. And let's hope that he can continue to play at a high level.
And around 290 odd points behind the great man here. And, you know, who knows? Maybe he goes crazy at the Olympics, but that is very well said from you. Truth or Trash is next. Will LeBron get to 45K? Could Wemby be an MVP? And what about our man, Trevor Gleeson? Is the NBL dreaming if they think he's coming back? We'll take Trev on the jump.
Almost 13 months ago, he passed the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to take his place on the NBA scoring throne.
And now on the verge of 40,000.
James drives, spins, gets inside. It's good. It's 40,000 for LeBron James.
Another milestone for the legend.
Welcome back into The Jump, presented by Hungry Jacks. Time for a little bit of truth or trash. And between LeBron James and Caitlin Clark, we've had scoring records tumbling over the weekend. 40,000 points. And this man used to get buckets for fun as well, Andrew Gay. So it's appropriate that I ask you this question first. Truth or trash? LeBron just passed 40K. He's going to get to 45K. Not can he do it, because we know he can, but truth or trash, he's going to get to 45K.
Well, Kane, it pains me to say this, but I'm actually going to put that in the trash category. Maybe I put it into we need like another category, a recycled trash or something like that, because 45,000 points, that is mind-boggling. I never thought in my lifetime I'd be able to see someone in the NBA playing at that level for so long, be able to get to 45,000 points. But what's he had? He's about 1,300 this year. This season, averaging 25. So he's probably at that pace. He's going to have to be at that level for the next couple of years or couple of seasons. And if you look at the trajectory, I think he's gone 30 points a game, 29 points a game, down to 25 points a game. So it's hard to see how a man is capable of doing it. But if anyone can, it's LeBron. But I just think it's a little bit too much of an ask, and I'm not sure he's going to be able to maintain that level over the next 3 or 4 seasons.
That makes sense to me. What do you got for me now, my friend?
Yes, well, we've all seen Victor Wembanyama. And, you know, when you're a number 1 pick and you've got the assets, the unicorn, as they call him, because he's such a freak in the way in which he can combine his size with his ball handling, the perimeter shooting, all that. But truth or trash, by the time his career is over, Victor Wembanyama is going to have an MVP trophy in the cabinet.
Well, I think it's truth, and I think it can happen in the next 5 years, Gazey, because what he's doing is absurd. This Spurs team stinks overall. You take Wemby off the floor, and they are horrific, the defensive numbers in particular. He might actually be a contender for Defensive Player of the Year this year as a rookie. In February, he's getting you 22 points, 12 rebounds, 4.5 assists as a 7'4" guy, and 4 blocks to go with 2 steals. The numbers are ridiculous. I don't know how it makes you feel looking at a big like this doing the things he does, Gazey, but to me, I think as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be right at the top in that MVP conversation as soon as maybe next year.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kane. He's so unusual to the league. Now, I know Chet Holmgren are right there, and what a journey we're going to be on as basketball fans, seeing those two guys go head-to-head, because there are some similar characteristics. But he has adapted to the NBA style, and I think the Spurs have been pretty good in the way in which they've managed him. You know, there's times in games I'm thinking, come on, Pop, I want to see more of Victor. But they've managed him well. They're taking good care of him. And you're right, I think that he's going to have an outstanding career, and maybe just not the one MVP trophy. There might be a few in the cabinet when it's all said and done.
Yeah, there aren't too many teams that can win around 18 games in an NBA season, and they're still must-watch, but I'm trying to watch every Spurs game I can. Let's go to the NBL. Jack McVey, one of my favourites, love him. A very great personality, great on the social media, but maybe he's not a great actor, Gazey. So truth or trash, Jack McVey should have been suspended for just really dropping the shoulder into Lockie Ulbrich.
He went all Killer Kowalski on us. And the only thing he didn't come from the top turnbuckle. Yes. He just came in and just landed with the forearm and the elbow into the chest of poor old Lockie Ulbrich. Now, in real time, it didn't look like much, but this slow-mo replay does not bode well for Jack McVey. I don't think he should be suspended because it was, I guess we go back to no harm, no foul. It's certainly something that's worthy of attention and perhaps a few bucks jumps out of his wallet because you can't have that type of behaviour, heat of the moment type thing. Jack McVey is a superstar right now and one of the main reasons the Jack Jumpers are going to go into this semi-final series against the Perth Wildcats as one of the favourites. They're playing some great basketball on the back of him. In this game, he was fantastic, 26 at 11. But you can't have that, Jack. Got to control the emotions. But no, I don't think we should be suspending him, particularly when what's at stake with a finals game coming up. Now, Kane, our man Trevor Gleeson, he was a superstar when he was on the show. Whenever there is an NBL coaching vacancy, Brian Goorjian and Trevor Gleeson, they are head and head as first on the depth chart, 1 and 2, whatever order you'd like to have them on the depth chart of clubs when they need coaches. But seeing our man Trevor Gleeson at the All-Star break, arm in arm with Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard, taking snapshots in an All-Star game environment with the team. We are truth or trash. NBL teams are kidding themselves if they think they're going to get Trevor Gleeson out of the NBA anytime soon. No, this is absolutely truth. And Gazey, I've had to do some soul searching myself because I was hopeful that at some point in time Trev would come back to us and he'd be a very important member of this Jump team. But I've given up. I was with him at the All-Star weekend and the smile on this man's face and just the level of celebrities that this man is now starting to lurk around and linger around and be friends with and get photos, as you pointed to. We just saw it. Gazey, I don't know how you feel about it. I don't think we're getting our man back, and I don't think he's coming back to the NBL. No, well, I know for the Sydney Kings standpoint, and they're going down the same path. Brian Goorjian, Trevor Gleeson, and anytime you've got 5 rings to flash, you know you're always going to be a hot item, but he looks like he's having fun. I've been talking to Trev and a bit of tongue-in-cheek stuff about him coming back, but as soon as I saw this photo, I said to myself, turn it up, NBL teams. You got no chance to get my man back when he's surrounded with this type of company. It's fantastic for Trev. It's great for Australian basketball. And let's hope that sometime in the future he can just remember us humble people that gave him his opportunity through the media. But no, it's great success, and let's hope that sometime in the future we do see him back in the NBL. Yeah, and he's going to have to get some more insurance on those personal valuables from the All-Star ring, maybe an NBA ring by the end of this season as well. But start to get yourself settled in to win or go home, play in hoops. The tip-off is not too far away between the Hawks and the Breakers. We're going to dive into that matchup more next on The Jump. The Jump presented by Hungry Jacks rolls on. And before we really sink our teeth into tonight's playing game, let's take a look back at the 2 postseason games already in the books. Everything ramps up at this time of the year, including our Plays of the Week, presented by Hungry Jacks.
Watch McDowell White, he's going to flash that yet again, and there is an easy basket. Oh!
Silent Cheatham with authority.
Perimeter and then interior passing. May have been contact and an add one possibility. Definitely was a foul.
And of course the early injury concern for Lee for the Jack Jumpers. Doyle underneath, Magnay finishes again. He's got 6 early points. In fact, make it 8. He's 4 of 4 from the field, and the Jackies are up by 9. And they now looking every bit the form team of the competition. Great move from Lee, going underneath and avoiding McVey.
They need an energy boost. I mean, right now they're going through the motion. You already know on the replay. Lee takes it to the basket and under and has to make that reverse because McVey's his presence alone is going to make you change your shot.
Now, do not forget, double the jump this week. We'll be back on Thursday night at 6:30 p.m, leading you directly into tip-off between Melbourne and either the Hawks or the Breakers. Friday night postseason hoops, the Wildcats and the Jackies game 1. After tonight, only 4 teams remain. We know those semi-final series are going to be best of 3. And Andrew Gazey, as I was preparing for tonight's game, the Hawks and the Breakers, I'm a little bit like you. I couldn't go past Parker Jackson-Cartwright. In the 2 losses for the Breakers, 19 points per game. In the game they won, he scored 31 points. So the question is, if you're the Hawks, what are you doing about this?
Well, the Hawks have done an outstanding job of, when they play the Perth Wildcats, of guarding Bryce Cotton. Now, Parker Jackson-Cartwright does it a little bit differently, but there are some similarities. And so the way in which they can get the ball out of his hands, make someone else beat you. And a lot of the times that's blitzing on the on-ball screens, really making it a physical war for him every time he's out on the floor and just trying to wear him down. Now, he plays with a lot of emotion, does Parker Jackson-Cartwright, and we saw that at the end of the game. And they've had a good break, a few days off since this game. So it's going to be tough, but I like the chances of the Illawarra Hawks of doing that.
Yeah, it should be really fun. As we mentioned, the games right throughout the season so far have been so tight, and I do expect that is going to be the case again tonight. Gazey, I know we spoke about Trev, but me and you, we've gone from strength to strength since Trev left us earlier in the season, and we're going to be back on Thursday night at 6:30 p.m. Tonight you got the Hawks and the Breakers. Thursday night, 6:30 p.m. Make sure you join us again when the jump continues.